Hey, this is Troy Erickson from copywriting.org. And I am super pumped today because when I was in college, I took a trip to Young and Rubicam, a really, really prominent marketing agency that's been around for a very long time. And my guest today is actually working with them when I don't even know when they started, but he's probably writing some of their coolest ads back in the day, as well as BBDO and Needham and Saatchi. He started literally in New York City on Madison Avenue. And today, after doing all these cool things, and we'll find out the rest of them in just a moment, he is writing for high-ticket coaches and consultants like Russ Ruffino, and literally is writing ads and other pieces of copy that are generating millions and millions of dollars per ad. So I would like to welcome Leon Altman.
Hey, Troy, great to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Obviously, you are what I would call an OG of this industry, and you have so many amazing experiences and wins. Could you elaborate a little bit more? Like, you have so many wins, I don't know where to start. So if you could tell everybody a little bit about your story and some other highlights that I maybe didn't go over.
Okay, let me see if I can do this quickly since it's a long story. I actually was an adjunct lecturer in English at the City University of New York, Queens College, and I really liked it. But then at a certain point, I wanted to make more money. And, it was in Queens, Manhattan was right across the river. Some professor had some contacts and he said, well, he suggested I go into advertising. I interviewed a number of agencies and then I got hired by Young and Rubicam in one of their big experiments. They called it the whole egg experiment. They thought that if they bought direct marketing agency, a couple of others, put it all under their roof, they could offer clients, hey, we cover the whole egg, so to speak. So I actually started at Wonderman, which was owned by Young and Rubicam, which was their direct marketing agency. And that was with Lester Wonderman, one of the pioneers of direct marketing. And then soon after that, Young and Rubicam called me up, and that was a great thing. I worked with one of the all-time art directors, and we did TV commercials. I won a Clio, which is the Oscars of advertising, and stayed in that world for about 12 years. And then after about, at that point, the third or fourth agency merger, they're going through all sorts of things. I said, you know what, I'll go on my own. And kind of been on my own ever since. I did a lot of sales letters, for all of the financial companies, like a lot of people do, but then also worked for IBM as a client. And then I gave in, I got an offer I couldn't refuse as creative director of, Jim Cramer of CNBC TV.
Of course, my dad watched him every day.
Well, he asked me to be the creative director of TheStreet.com, which was still is,
Wow.
his website where he and a number of other financial gurus have paid newsletters and all of that. I did that for, I don't know, about a year, and then realized I need to be on my own. So ever since then, doing all sorts of, a lot of internet marketing related things. And then I got into the high ticket coaches and consulting, and something about it appealed to me. And I've kind of stayed in that area, also small and medium-sized businesses. And I'm still at it, and I still love it, and still getting wins. So a lot of the things, and it's ironic, let me just quickly say this. When I worked in TV commercials, you had 30 seconds. You needed to have one idea and get it across. Well, guess what? What's hot now? Short video ads. it's sort of all come back. And some of those same principles are getting across a big idea, a hook, and making it memorable has sort of stayed as a principle that led to a lot of successes for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good transitioning point too, because you're somebody who has like been successful in so many different eras, whereas most people fall off because they're like, oh, this is the new way. I want to do it the old way. But just going all the way from like TV commercials and working with these like classic old school agencies, and now you're like talking about short form video ads. It's really cool to see how you've been able to adjust over the years. Now, the main reason for that is probably because of something that you told me, hookology, right? So like most people think of a hook and they're just like, oh, the first line or the first few seconds of a video. But you're telling me that you're putting in like hooks all throughout an ad or all throughout an email. Can you talk a little bit more about the concept of hookology and why it's made you so successful?
Sure. So, yeah, you're right. People think of hooks, you got to get attention, especially these days. Well, guess what? You got to keep their attention, especially, let's say, in a long sales letter or webinar, but even ads and emails. So there needs to be hooks throughout. I think of, for instance, let's say in emails, which you're very familiar with, there's often bullet points, right? And I think of each bullet point as a small hook, or maybe there's a big hook in there. It's kind of like, was it Clayton Makepeace called them fascinations. You've got to hook people in ads, let's say in video ads and so on. Yeah, you need that opening hook. But then at a certain point, it's what's unique about what you offer. Then a unique mechanism to me is a hook. It's how do you phrase that unique mechanism in a way that captures their attention, gets their curiosity, gets them thinking, at last, there may be a solution to the problem. So I think of hooks throughout all marketing communications. It's kind of like, I remember when I was writing these long sales letters. In a certain way, there was a certain fear. As I'm writing it, I'm going, will I lose them? Could I lose them here? It's already, 3 pages. How can I make sure that they stay on? So I think it's vital to think of it all through whatever marketing communications you have, and all through a sales funnel. It may have, I think Jeff Walker even said when he first started, his thing was to have a big idea for his sales funnel and for his launch and carry it all the way through. And his was something about if you launch, you need to launch big and so on. So I think of hooks as really the thing that keeps people's attention in this age of where no one's paying attention. It's
That's
so
a good
it's
way to put it.
yeah, it's vital throughout. And let's say we're in the middle of the storm of AI, which is here to stay. I see it as, yeah, it can produce the body of your marketing communications, but from what I've seen right now, the big hook, the big idea, you either have to layer it on top of it or really do a lot of interaction with the AI, which will just give you ideas. You still have to select, come up with it, reform it into something that it captures attention and keeps it.
Yeah, 100%. I still think at this time, at least right now, AI is good for generating ideas, but it just doesn't
Yeah.
have that personal touch yet. And I think one of the best prompts too is you can literally ask it, Chat GPT, for different examples and like bullet points, kind of like you were saying. So for somebody maybe who is struggling to come up with ideas, good research point. But what I wanted to touch on a little bit right now is you mentioned writing a sales letter, and one of the the key things that stands out to you is reading your own copy and saying, is there a section of this that's too boring where I'm going to lose them?
Yeah.
So at that point, you're like, all right, time to put in a hook to recapture their attention. Now, when you come up with your hooks, like, and your bullet points and things, first of all, how do you come up with the hooks? And then how do you order them? So like which one is going to be at the very top, and then which one is going to be next, and then which one's going to be in the middle, and then which one's going to be toward the end?
I think the best way is to give you kind of an analogy. Let's say someone starts their sales letter just with writing down bullet points. When you review it, there probably one or two bullet points stick out that, there is the nub of the big idea, the big headline. And so that would go on top. And then throughout, you look at those or almost order them in order of how does it tell the story? How does it tell the narrative? In a sense, subheads, which not many people talk about, but subheads, I often thought as hooks to re-engage people, make sure they're coming back to the through line, the story that goes throughout the sales letters. So how do you come up with it? Sometimes you start off with a list of bullet points. Sometimes as you're writing, it's an iterative process. As you're writing, you go, this section here, I think if I really had to sum it up, or if I had to make a cliffhanger to lead them into the following section, this is what it would be. So you can start off with it, but I think it's iterative. As you're writing it, you'll come up with the hooks to go through it.
Yeah, definitely. And also in terms of like real world examples. So obviously you mentioned Russ Rufino, cool guy. I've seen his ads plenty of times. Do you have any examples of a couple of good hooks that you've used for Russ or that have worked really well for him?
Well, let me give you an example of a wild one, a wild hook.
Okay, let's do it.
So it's not just hooks are strategy based. They're based on someone's core messages, or else they're just, floating around. So one of Russ's core messages is you don't need to create tons of content and drive yourself crazy. What you need to do is focus in on this 45-minute webinar. That's going to be the content that does all the work for you. And in a sense, it's as simple as that. Of course, we know it's not quite as simple. So I'm thinking, all right, it all comes down to this 45-minute webinar. In a sense, that's his secret, his hook. So I twisted it and got it to the point where I thought of a scenario of these kidnappers who've kidnapped Russ Rufino, and it opens up with him tied up in a chair. And they're going, Rufino, we're not letting you go until you tell us the secret. Guys, it's simple. It can't be that simple. Guys, it's just a 45-minute webinar. That's the secret. And they keep haranguing him because it can't be that simple. So that certainly got people watching. And it's really just taking that core message. It doesn't have to be all this content. It can just be this 45-minute webinar and making it into a secret and twisting the creative dial. What if some kidnappers are deluded and thinking his secret, he's holding it, and if we knew it, we'll make $1 million, just like all of his coaches. So
Yeah. And
that's
I like that angle because I think in today's day and age, there's like, it's so simple to create ads, for example.
oh yeah.
And a lot of people just think like, oh, let me look at what else is out there. And they just grab a stock image and then they throw up some copy. And it's so fast because it's so simple. But then you're looking at it from a perspective like, okay, let's put a little more production and creativity behind this, or somebody's tied up almost like they're in what, a commercial. And like people have almost forgotten what it's like to even watch commercials these days in some cases, because it's like there's so many ad blockers and people don't watch TV as much. But really going back to that really creative asset and just looking at history. So I think that's really cool.
Creative wins now. And you've probably seen articles. There's I think Gary Vee talks about it all the time. He says, creative wins. That's the edge. I'll give you another quick example. So did an ad for Douglas James, another big, I don't know, 8-figure online coach, very successful.
I've heard of them. Yep.
So yeah, so he does a lot of work in showing people how to build quote digital real estate websites that get leads and so on. So we've kind of done that in a number of different ways. And I thought, what's a way to get people's attention right away? So, and get them into the digital real estate, but not getting them into the weeds of digital real estate, getting them in a creative hook. So came up with a script, and the first line Douglas says to the audience is, I want to show you some real estate porn. And then there's these, the montages of all these reality shows, this beautiful real estate. And he says, here it is. And you see all of this, and you've probably heard stories of people making money with this real estate, but they don't tell you about the costs, fixing it, and the lawyers and all of that. Let me tell you about a kind of real estate where you don't have to deal with all that and still make money. So it was coming at it from an interesting, different way, and then getting into the nitty-gritty of digital real estate.
Yeah, I like that too. And the more that I think about it, like one thing that I've kind of like struggled with, to be transparent, is like how creative do you get versus how simple do you get? But I think, especially talking to you right now, I've kind of figured out that you want to take something that is familiar to them and something that is creative and like new to them, or even contrarian, and put those things together. And I think that's a good combination. I once wrote an ad for Chance and Abdul for Modern Millionaires. They're one of the biggest biz ops spenders on YouTube. And the whole hook is online billboards. So like people in biz op, they're familiar with billboards. They drive past them. But what exactly is an online billboard? And it's really, at the end of the day, an ad. But like, I really like this concept. I don't know if you want to talk any more about like how you combine things they're familiar with versus things they're unfamiliar with, but that's kind of what I was thinking.
You just stated two of the, what I call evergreen big idea frameworks. So you were talking about introducing something new and comparing it to something that they know. That's the definition of a metaphor.
True.
Metaphor and analogies. And it goes back, Aristotle said that he who masters metaphor is a master of persuasion. And that's true a couple of thousand years ago, and it's true today. That's one of the frameworks of what I call the evergreen frameworks. The other one that you just mentioned was something about going against
contrarian, yes.
Contrarian. The contrarian angle is one of the best. As a matter of fact, there's a scientific study that showed it was the best way to get your ideas across to an audience. but you have to do it a certain way. And I call it refute and replace. So you need to sort of get the assumed belief, refute it, but then you need to replace it with a new belief, which leads to your solution, whatever you're offering. There's a variant of that I call refute and reframe. Maybe you don't have to totally refute it. Maybe just say this supplement is good, turmeric, but you need to add some black pepper to it or something like that. So you're just reframing it. So those, I have a bunch of what I call evergreen big idea frameworks, but you off the bat just named two of them. So
Perfect. I'm happy to hear it. So, and anyway, Leon, thank you. This has been awesome. And I kind of knew that in advance because of your awesome history. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, whether to hire you or to just like, I don't know, get more info about your awesome journey, how should they contact you?
very simple. Just go to altmancommunications.com. It'll give you my history, testimonials, my hookology, altmancommunications.com.
Perfect. And we will put that below. So you can check it out. So once again, that's Leon Altman, and he has pretty much been very, very good at copywriting for a long time, has the results to back it up. And hopefully you learned something from this. So Leon, thank you for being here, and thank you to everybody for listening. Again, I'm Troy from copywriting.org, and I'll see you next time.